So after the success of the last book nook that I did, I took on a commission job to do another Lord of the Rings book nook. The last one, of course, was for the Dead of Dunharrow. This one is the Mines of Moria, the Balrog. Book nooks work really well for cramped, confined spaces, and so Moria seems like just a ideal spot for that. And of course, I was excited to do it because the Balrog is such a great model. This comes from Games Workshop, who has the license to do the Lord of the Rings battle game. And the Balrog model is just so cool. Really an exquisite model. And then the Gandalf model that I used is actually a Gandalf the White model that I converted to give him his Gandalf the Grey staff, and then painted him, of course, in gray. But it's a good pose with him holding his staff above his head and his sword, and it looks very "you shall not pass"-ish. So I'm painting the Balrog with yellow and orange. It's easier to paint him in yellow and orange first, and then paint black over the top of it, rather than paint him black and then paint the yellow details in later on. So that is the approach that I'm taking here, where he is very yellow and then painting the black on as we go. So I built the back. This is the stairs that they come down as they are fleeing from the Balrog. The great scenes where they're jumping from stair to stair as the stairs are collapsing. But I didn't have a lot of space, and so this is just kind of a relief to give you the general impression of it. I built it out of foam, and then now I'm using Sculptamold, which is a modeling compound. It is like plaster, but it's a little bit fibrous, and it gives a really good texture. Mix it up by hand. Needs a little bit more water because it gets really stiff and it can get sticky. It dries very fast. It'll dry within 10 or 15 minutes if you don't get it wet enough. And so it's a little bit tricky to work with, but once you get the hang of it, it's really useful. And so it gives a good, nice background to the stone wall of the back of the cave here. And I really like the look of it, and I really like the look of the binds. It gives you something to look deep into the book nook. That's the thing about the book nook, is that it has to have something where you are like, oh, I've got to get my face right in there, and I want to peek inside and see all the detail. And so having this here in the background really adds to that. It gives you something that you really stick your face in there and you're like, I've got to see every bit of the inside of this book nook. I've got to see all of the funny details that are there. So it came together really well, and you'll see when I paint it that the dry brushing on the stone, I painted it all black, and then I dry brushed the stone in some grays and some pale yellows. Now I needed to put in the lights. This is the main floor. I needed the lights to go from the back because that's where the lights needed to start, the battery pack. And then I needed them to be underlit so that the light would come up from the bottom and from the front. So it's going up underneath the bridge, and then it will get tucked under the front piece. You can see that right there. So the lights are getting tucked under there, so we're going to get a glow. And then I wanted to have lights coming in from the front, but I didn't want them to be hanging from the ceiling. I didn't want them to be easily seen. So I built these dwarven pillars, which are the pillars that you see not necessarily in this scene where he says you shall not pass, but in the earlier scenes where they're fleeing from the Balrog and the goblins are all there and the goblins start to flee, and they're running through that massive chamber that has all of the dwarven pillars. So I watched the movie and I styled these pillars after those pillars in that scene, particularly the front and then the carving in the sides of the pillars. And it turned out pretty well. So I ran the lights under the bridge, or along the bottom, and then up and down both of the pillars. And the lights are really easy to work with. I have good and bad things to say about the lights. The lights are not as bright as I would like, and I think that in future Book Nook projects I'm going to find a different brand of lights. These are good and they work really well, but unless you're in a dim room, you don't really get the full effect of the glowing red lights. So, as we'll see in later parts of this video. The cool thing about these LED lights, though, is that when you run out of space, which I'm about to do right here, and I've still got 1.5 feet of lights, you can just trim them off. And it doesn't hurt the circuit, and it doesn't make a fire hazard, and it's just, there we go, clip them away. And now I don't need the rest of those lights, and now I've got a thing. So this is the back piece. It has been dry brushed. You can see that the stonework has been dry brushed a little bit less than the dwarven stairs that they built. I'm building this with wood glue and super glue. The super glue keeps it in place in an immediate bond, where the wood glue will keep it placed permanently. I didn't have as good of luck as I would like with the wood, and I'm still experimenting with that. On previous projects, I've been buying craft wood from craft suppliers on Amazon, and the wood, the different brands that I have bought, all have a little bit of a bow to them, which makes the wood not quite square. And I haven't figured out how to solve this problem yet. I might have to... I don't have a table saw, but that might be the best investment, is to figure out, get large sheets of wood and just use a table saw and hope for the best. So now it is all painted black, and now it's time to put in the Balrog. As you can see, the Balrog is shifted over a little bit to the right. The bridge is not straight down the center, and that's because I wanted his whip to be entirely within the Book Nook, which meant that he is going to be butting up against the one wall, that wall that I just put on, and I need to trim off part of his wing. I need to clip his wing, and I need to clip the other wing a little bit, which you'll see here, but not nearly so severely. But you don't notice it because of the dwarven pillars, and it works pretty well. There we go, trimming his wing, and putting the board on, putting down the super glue, and then we'll put in wood glue later. Get it working. And now we're going to do the facade that goes on the front, and the facade is going to be, it says the Fellowship of the Ring, but it is written in dwarvish runes that you can find online if you just Google Tolkien runes, and they have the whole language written out in the translation of the runes. So Fellowship of the Ring in runes. And of course I like lettering, and so I enjoy this part of the project, and it all works out pretty well. And I think that this really caps it off and makes it complete, and I'm really happy with that. Gonna apply some glue to it quick, stick it on, and then bring it over and you can get a quick look at it. There we go. So there's Gandalf in the front with his kit-bashed staff and the Balrog bellowing at him, and you can see Moria in the background, all the stairs coming down, and you can see the pillars in the front with the texture that is on the pillars. And in a minute, whoa, in a minute you'll see what it looks like in the more dimly lit. Look, there we are, the Balrog in Lord of the Rings. Thanks for watching this video, thanks for subscribing, and I will see you next time.